Good morning and welcome to the Cauldron of Curiosities. I'm going to be honest here, and I have allowed time and dates to run away with me. I haven't actually got a clue what day it is, but I believe it's Thursday, the 2nd of July, and that means this is the first Thursday of the month. What does first Thursday of the month mean on the podcast? It means I'm meant to be pushing out a three-parter. But what is it that I've been up to? Those of you that have been listening for some time will know that I purchased a narrowboat to live on. And the actual purchase date was in March. I am still painting it, waiting for a quote for someone to give me the pricing to have the flooring done, because I had to rip all the flooring up because it had a leak from the central heating system. But do you know what? It makes you realise how much you get niggled by other people, and how much I get niggled by the fact that the person that owned my narrowboat before me did things that make my life difficult now. And these are things like shearing off the head of a screw because they were doing it quickly, so they were using a powered screwdriver. That means I can't undo the screws. I've tried various methods, and one of the methods that Screwfix recommended was to use a rubber band, a thick rubber band, and it helped. It might help grip, but I think this is going to be a requirement for a drill to go in and get it out, because it was not shifting. And it's not even like it was the most important screw, and you'd think, why couldn't you just put it in by hand so it's not rammed in? Because this is screws going into wood, so it's not the most difficult surface to go in. But then I always have that part of me that thinks to myself, okay, what would have caused this to happen? Why did he choose to do that? And so there's a nicer part of me that makes up excuses for other people's behaviour when I don't like it. And I try to find a good reason why they would do that, so it doesn't annoy me so much. And then I feel guilty for being annoyed. But then I realised we have become a society that makes excuses. We make excuses for people's bad behaviour. We've seen that in the press recently, where a judge made excuses for young men who raped a young girl and didn't want to put them in prison because of the impact it would have on their life. And it was almost like he didn't have any empathy at all for the girl who had been raped. What sort of world are we in where we're making excuses for bad behaviour, for rapists, for people who abuse others? And you see it on Facebook, don't you? Where people make excuses. So somebody will post something and there's someone who will sit on the fence. Where did that behaviour come about? That we're constantly making excuses for other people's bad behaviour. What year was this? A 1960s? Or is it a millennium activity where we say there must be a reason? Is it a psychobabble? Psychological understanding, digging into the weeds? There must be a reason why this person went round chopping all the cats' heads off. Not, they're just an evil bastard, so maybe that was something they like to do. I would like to know what you think. Do you think we make too many excuses for others? I do believe that if we can find the good in someone, it makes us manage their behaviour and our responses or reactions to their behaviour. It makes things a little bit easier, doesn't it? But in our constant method of making excuses, we've ended up creating a very odd dynamic. Do let me know what you think about that. So, I'm going to stop making excuses for the man who's currently annoying me. That's the man who owned my boat before. For the things that I find and think, why did you do that? It's so annoying. Why did you break that thing? Surely you thought someone would come along. And then you get that excuse, and you get this off people. I'm sorry, I didn't think. Now, when I was 16, I remember being that person who did not plan ahead. I didn't think about the consequences. But then if you think, at age 16, my brain wasn't completely developed. I didn't completely understand who I was or what my operations were. Didn't mean I got away with it. I didn't get away with it. Didn't stop me doing it again. You know, on the point of doing something without thinking ahead. Because I was very impulsive. Do I forgive myself for that? Most of the time. But occasionally I think, my God, sorry, you're horrible. And I have to accept that. That I did some things when I was younger which weren't nice. And I have learnt to live with that. Because I don't have a time machine. I can't go back into the past and say, hey, let's not do it that way. Poke me on the shoulder. I think at age 16, if 61-year-old Sarah came along, I don't think I would be listening to her. Not unless I found a way of getting through. Because the things that make us distracted and the things we think about at that age are quite different from those that we do as we get older. Some of us spend quite a bit of time analysing, don't we? And I know I do. And maybe that's where this concept of making excuses for others comes from. But what I'm doing today is I'm painting my built-in bed and my wardrobes with Annie Sloan paint. And because it's quite warm, the paint is actually drying quite quickly, and I would definitely not be videoing this for a workshop. Not that I'm a person who thinks I'm brilliant at Annie Sloan stuff, but I actually have ended up wearing quite a lot of the Annie Sloan paint today, and luckily good old baby wipes has helped get it off. Tried a bit of water, but it did not work. And that's the thing that I find really bizarre, is why do wet wipes meant for baby's bum clean everything off? And I found this whilst I've been cleaning the boat. I've used one of those eraser sponges. It's got some of the dirt off, but the only thing that really did the trick, I also tried sugar soap, did nothing. Baby wipes, that's right. They really did get the muck off. So what do they put in baby wipes? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? And one of the things I've been doing on TikTok is looking at what we're putting on our bodies, in our bodies, and not really thinking about it. Now, when I was a lot younger, I worked in operating theatres as a nurse, And one of the things that we used to use for sterilising equipment was a liquid called Sidex. And they stopped using Sidex because they found out that it was carcinogenic, not good for you. But people used to put their hands in it. This was round about the time when we were moving from reusable items towards single use. So that had an impact on the products that we were using. And I never thought about the impact of the Sidex on my skin. It would have been absorbed by my skin. So what damage did it do to my body? And then we think about the injections that we've had over the years. And I was in the army and I've had quite a lot of different injections because of places I've had to go in the world. And again, how did it get broken down? Or have I got deposits of those vaccines sat in my body somewhere causing minor problems? And then you add to it some of the makeup, some of the creams and ointments. There was a video which I shared on TikTok because the girl was using Dr. Malaxin thing for her lips, and she was comparing it to an American alternative. And what it was doing, it really showed the difference on her lips, and she ended up with these very swollen lips. And I have had swollen lips in the past from being allergic to a deodorant, and it is not nice. It's actually quite unpleasant sensation, and it's caused by an irritant. And you've got all these girls doing their TikTok videos using something that is irritating the cells in their lips to make them look bigger. And that's another whole conversation, isn't it, about why do you want big fat lips? If you've got any thoughts on that one, do let me know. But it's a bit of an odd one. I know having lips that aren't completely thin or non-existent is something that makes you look younger. But these people aren't necessarily older. They're quite young people who are injecting their lips or putting chemicals on that are causing an irritation that makes the lips swell up to maybe 3 or 4 times their normal size. And then you get the ones that do the injections. And I remember somebody at work telling me about how one of her colleagues had the lip filler injection and it had gone wrong, it had gone hard, and she had a lump which could be seen, it was visible. And she just had to wait for it to slowly break down. You could do a little bit of massage to help break it down, but she had a lump. So she went from probably having fairly normal lips, she wasn't that old, put the lip filler in, and she's got a lump that everybody can see. And I've had friends of mine, I've looked at them, and they've got weird marks or swellings, and I go, what happened? Oh, I've been to have a Botox injection. But it's made your face look a little bit strange. And you know, when you've known someone for a long time and you're used to their facial expressions, and then they go and have these injections, putting the chemicals in to poison their liver, but you look at them and you go, you know, who are you? You don't look like who I'm used to talking to, because your face is not doing anything anymore. It's like a blank screen, which looks rather bizarre. Definitely. Now on to what books have I read Well, I've been reading a few. I'm reading the Rivers of London series by Ben Aranovich, and it ties in quite nicely with the things that are going on outside with the rivers being poisoned by the waterboards. Notice there's the theme of poison here. And we've recently had people up in arms because children have gone swimming in the river and they've been very unwell afterwards. But this is not new. People have been complaining to the waterboards about the toxins in the river caused by sewage outflows. And they have these sewage discharges. There's actually an app that you can go and look at. And in the Rivers of London, P.C. Grant meets the goddesses of the rivers, the genus loci, and they work together to stop the poisoning of their rivers, and they get involved in changing things. Now, the genus loci of the rivers aren't necessarily going to be walking down the high street ready for you to recognise, but they do need our interaction, because it's human beings who are doing the damage, and it's human beings that need to get stuck in and stop the poisoning of the rivers. And then it'll be clean for the fish, for the birds and the animals that live on the river. I recently spent some time up in Scotland, and the rivers up there were definitely cleaner than the ones down here. There wasn't so much rubbish apart from the one in Dumfries, which had a spectacular amount of broken glass on it. And I did do some litter picking whilst I was there. But one of the interesting things that I found with the Rivers of London series is some of the comments that are made about prejudice and the prejudice towards others who are not the same as you. And this isn't always about colour. It's about maybe somebody who's half fey and how people would be prejudiced towards them because they're not full-blooded. And we've seen history of that, haven't we? Especially in the UK, towards people who are half bloods. And it's something that I've noticed, that we're so good at othering. And I did do a podcast about othering. But what can we do to repair the damage that's been done? We can change how we react. We can get involved in litter picking. And we can get involved in projects that clean up, can't we? You might want to be involved in the inland waterways or any of the river charities that organise volunteers to clean up spaces that we all enjoy. And what we seem to forget is when the rivers are poisoned, our lifeblood of the land is poisoned. And that, in turn, will affect all of us. And we seem to forget that, don't we? The impact of a poison running through the ground, through the earth. So the flowers are becoming poisoned, the plants that we're growing, the insects. And do we really want to see the extinction of all of the things that allow us to be alive? It's a sad, sad world, isn't it, when you think about it? If you have any thoughts on what we can do to feed back to the planet, then do let me know. And next will be Foragers' Feedback. So we've got berries on the sloe already. You'll notice the grasses are already seeding. Seems to have been some caterpillar action here, eating through the blackthorn leaves. I have seen some berries in other places where they're a lot more purple, but it's still very early in the season, isn't it? The hawthorn here, this is quite a windy place, has already got green halls. Hopefully there will be some sunshine with rain to plump them up. Can you see crab apples tucked through there? And then the rose here with the buds forming, because the roses have already moved along and been, look at that, see those tiny apples. They're quite very tart, but you can make crab apple jelly, can't you? Some of these, look, they're already reddening. So it's very early. Makes you wonder what's going to happen if the hawthorn produces its berries too early. There aren't going to be so many on the plants. I mentioned to you, didn't I, about them being purple, so they're a purple colour there, the sloes are. It's almost like it's August, isn't it? Because of the summer that we've had so far. Really dried everything out. So some of the things that we would expect to still be in place have gone. Hazel, some hazelnuts there. Not many people realise that these are edible hazelnuts. So if you find them, and there's plenty here on this hazel bush, look there. If you can get to them before the squirrels do, gather them when they're ripe and pop them on the side, maybe ripen them a little bit more in the sunshine. There we go. Just to give you another view. Little green packets with a hazelnut inside. We've got some more up here. It's unusual to find a hazel tree with quite so many nuts there. You can see the leaves have been eaten by a caterpillar. More hazelnuts. There's a good gathering here, so the person that owns this land, which is where we're walking the dogs, can come and harvest the hazelnuts at some point. I haven't seen any squirrels in the section. I would imagine that because there's so many dogs, then there won't be any squirrels in here. I don't think there's any masochistic squirrels around this area. Another hazel. Again, got hazelnuts on it. The oak. No acorns yet. Acorns are definitely an autumn thing, or late August, that I've seen before. Oh gosh, look, tiny acorn started there. So it is starting, isn't it? Look at those sloes. So you saw a video, if you go back into my videos where we've walked here in spring, early spring. More hazelnuts here. The birch has got catkins here. Some of the oaks have got green leaves still coming through, so some variations of the stages that trees are at. And there are berries coming on this plant here. This is always a plant that I forget the name of it, but it has a flower That's very similar to the elder, and then you have lots of berries that you can make a jelly from. You see the flowers on this tree as well. Look at the way the leaves move in the wind. Beautiful, isn't it? It's interesting here, there isn't any bindweed. We've got a bit of a bindweed in my daughter's garden. It's a bit of a problem because it's swamping and weighing down all the other plants. You see the way that the leaves are turning in the wind. Yeah, it's breezy up here and not so blue sky either. The weather's still relatively warm, which will keep things growing. We've got starting to go blue berries on these. They get a reasonable amount of sunshine, so there's more sloes there. There's a couple of ones in there that are nearly black. It's bizarre, isn't it? To think we're walking along with all these grasses ready to shed their seeds, which would suggest that it's time for the first harvest, and that's early. So are we going to see such a huge shift of our harvest times with the different weathers? But with it, if we get the strong winds, then we're going to see damage, aren't we? Because when trees are fully laden with their leaves and a heavy wind comes through, then the leaves can, the trees' branches can break. I saw a post the other day where a beech tree had fallen onto a narrowboat, and one of the tree surgeons said it was quite common for beech trees in summer to sort of give up the ghost and crash. So it makes you wonder, doesn't it, about their roots. And I would have thought, given the height of beeches, that they would have a deep root system. Has anybody got any thoughts on that you know about? See, the thistles getting past its best, isn't it? That's ready to start sending seeds out. And the grass here, also golden August looking. You wouldn't think this was June, would you? Not at all. I know there's a couple of apple trees around here. So here's another one. Here's an apple tree. The apples are really small on this, which is indicative of the lack of rain that we've had recently. It does need a good amount of rain to get in for the roots to take up and help the apples swell. The apples at the allotment in the tree that I've been helping look after, they are quite large, but she's already had a few windfalls, which I have left them because maybe the birds would benefit from having apples to eat, but have taken them. But it'd be interesting to see how well they do. Any thoughts about what you are seeing on the land? Is everything dried out, or have you got any new crops coming through? Have you got any second budding of your roses? Any more dandelions coming through? This was a sea of dandelions before, with full moon silvery seed heads, and I took some photographs of that before, and there's some yarrow over there. If you want to use yarrow, yarrow's exceptionally good as an anti-inflammatory because it's got azulene in it, and it can help with steeping wounds. Do check out your own herb books. We have white clover here, there's no red clover. Willow. They're looking a little bit worse with the weather, aren't they, because of the colour, and here a little bit closer to the yarrow. Edge to it. Let me know what you use yarrow for, and or do you follow cold pepper? What are your thoughts? I'm going to leave this point here on Bumble, gathering lots of grass seeds that I will have to pick out of his coat. One of the downsides, isn't it, of having a dog and going into a field where there's lots of grass.